He is more than you could ever need. He's more than the eye could see. I don't deserve his love, but he's always been there for me. You see, Jesus met me when I was at my lowest. And if you don't know Jesus, know this. He is the greatest example of generosity this world of greed has ever seen. And when Jesus hit the scene, he changed the scenery and met diversity with serenity. If you're looking for peace, he offers plenty. Jesus was and Jesus will forever be king. And when the angels sing, they sing of the grace that was displayed for sinners like me. I can't explain him and I can't describe him. And if I could, he wouldn't be Jesus. Because you can't explain eternity and you can't comprehend the galaxies. But it was the loving hands of Jesus who spun them into existence and created man, knowing he would go to the cross to pay our sentence. There was a certificate of judgment with a period after the sentence. And we were sentenced to death long before he said it is finished. He is a father to the orphan, a shelter for the homeless, a hiding place for the abused, and an anchor for our storms. He stormed the gates of hell and came out on top, and the power of his gospel cannot be stopped, even when the world tries. And they tried a lot. He traded places with Barabbas and became the catalyst of missions across the world, covering every portion of the atlas. If you're in need of rest, I know of a mattress. If you don't know Jesus, your future is tragic, but he gladly embraced tragedy so we can live in his presence of majesty. His presence is presence, and it's his presence that presents preciousness to a world of peasants. He is far from pretentious, but still loves those who are. He is alive in the world and hung the stars. He brings the dead to life and delivers life to the dead. He took a crown of thorns on his head so we could put crowns at his feet, and I can't wait until I get to kiss his feet that were nailed to the cross for me and for you and for every person around the world. He loves the world, and I love his word because the word became flesh, and in his flesh he demonstrated the word to the world. He is an example to every boy and every girl. He is a lover of black people. He is a lover of white people. He is a lover of the unchurched and the assembly under the steeple. He doesn't see the believers' failures, but still takes time to celebrate their faithfulness. It's the power of the Spirit that enables us and gives us boldness when the world labels us. And if you want to label me, please call me a Jesus freak. If that freaks you out, good. Because it's better to be good with God than to fight being misunderstood by a world that could never understand. So let it be understood that I don't worship man, we worship Jesus. And although he doesn't need us, he still sees us and pleads with us to run to the cross where he bled for us. His heart bleeds for us, his heart grieves for us, but still graciously grants us a pardon for our treason in a season where the world tries to explain away the work of the Spirit with human reasoning. There's a reason they can't. Because the Spirit is like the wind, and the wind cannot be seen. But love is the one who believes without seeing the unseen. I'm telling you today that Jesus is something. He's something more. He's something great. And if you want to know him, you don't have to wait. He stands at the narrow path with a key to the gate. You only have to reach out and embrace his grace. I don't care who's president. I have the king who is always present. I don't care who holds musical celebrity. The voice of the Lord will always be the sweetest melody. I don't care who owns the riches of the globe. My Jesus holds more wealth than one ruby on his robe. I don't care who is the strongest or the fastest. Nothing matches the creator of the universe and his immortal, infinite status. I don't care about religious leaders who died and stayed dead. I'll only worship the one who conquered death and wears a crown on his head. His name is Jesus, and I'm telling you, he's something. He was faithful yesterday, and he is faithful today. I can feel his presence whenever I pray, and when the time comes for me to fade away, I'll remember the day I heard him say, my name is Jesus.
Watching a video like that does something. It causes your hope to rise. To watch something like that, you don't sit back and like, oh, that's nice. Like I knew the moment that I found this video, I was looking for something like this. I was looking for something that when people saw it, they would be like, yeah, I can relate to that. Because as you watch that video, if you've been a Christian any amount of time, you've walked through something. You've walked through some struggle. You've walked through some difficulty. That you've had a season where the doctor said that there would be no healing. And then essentially write it off short of a miracle, then all of a sudden the miracle comes. That you walk through something where all of a sudden you lose the job that you had. You lose your way of providing, and all of a sudden God brings something better. That you can walk through all of these different things, and that hope arises. The more that we experience hope, the more we experience difficulty, but then God coming through, the thing that happens over and over again is hope starts rising. We can start believing in hope. The definition of hope is a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. Now, we can have hope in a whole lot of different things. We can go to the job interview and hope that we get the job. We can go to Thanksgiving dinner and hope that nobody gets in an argument. That we can, guys, if you go and you go to propose, you can hope that she says yes. You can even hope that your team wins the big game. But some things in life just aren't certain. And Jordan says, oh, she's not paying attention. I would expect, I set you up, Jordan. It's okay. We don't need that amen anyways. All right. But here's the thing, is hope. When we look at hope in our world, when we look at hope in different situations around us, the things of this world are going to fail us. There's only one thing that we can place our hope in, that we know that it can trust and that it can grow and that it can build, and that's in Jesus. That's where we place our hope. And when that hope begins to grow, it grows into confidence. And confidence is the state of feeling certain about the truth of something. My hope in Christ is the firm confidence that Jesus is who he says he is. When we look at Exodus 3:13 through 15, Moses, this is that burning bush experience that he gets in front of the presence of God. And Moses says to God, suppose I go to the people of Israel. Suppose I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And suppose they ask me, what is his name? Then what should I tell them? God says to Moses, I am who I am. Here is what you must say to the Israelites. Tell them, I am has sent me to you. In verse 15, God also said to Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord is the God of your fathers. He has sent me to you. He is the God of Abraham. He is the God of Isaac. And he is the God of, and our assumption would be, Israel. Because in this passage, when God's speaking to Moses, he uses the name Abraham. So as he's talking about the three patriarchs of the Jewish faith, he doesn't say the God of Abram. He uses Abraham's changed name. So when he gets to the third one, we assume he's going to say the God of Israel, identifying their nation, identifying what God has done. But he doesn't say Israel. He says the God of Jacob. If we study through Jacob's life, there's a lot that we could study, but we see Jacob as someone who's mischievous. We see Jacob as somebody who has faults and failures until one day he wrestles with God and God changes his life and changes his identity and changes his name to Israel. But God doesn't use the God of Israel here. He uses the God of Jacob. That he's the God of your situations, that even when you fail, even when you struggle, even when you have faults, when you need hope, God is your God. Today we're going to be talking about the idea, as we finish the book of Acts, that hope on trial. And so today, as we hit this, I'm going to be hitting highlights. I hope you did your reading, because there's 3 chapters and time is always limited. But I'm going to hit the things that I feel like God really brought to my attention in Acts 26, 27, and 28 as we finish the book of Acts today. And in Acts 26, Paul has the chance to make his case before King Agrippa. He's told that he can go ahead and make his case, and in verse 4 he says, the Jewish people all know how I have lived ever since I was a child. They know all about me from the beginning of my life. They know how I lived in my own country and in Jerusalem. They have known me for a long time. So if they wanted to, they could tell you how I have lived. I have lived by the rules of the Pharisees. Those rules are harder to obey than those of any other Jewish group. Today I am on trial because of the hope I have. I believe in what God promised our people of long ago. It is the promise that our tribes are hoping to see come true. Because of this hope, they serve God with faithful and honest hearts day and night. King Agrippa, it is also because of this hope that these Jews are bringing charges against me. Why should any of you think it is impossible for God to raise the dead? Paul's not giving up. At a moment, you would think, Paul, they're not going to listen to you. How many times as we went through the book of Acts, has Paul had to give his testimony and go on trial and witness that this is who God is, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and here he is yet again. It would be easy for us to give up hope, but Paul knows where his hope is, because Paul knows where his story started, and he knows how his story has been progressing, and he's already been made aware of the fact that he's going to Rome, so he doesn't give up his hope. He has confidence in who his Jesus is. Then we jump ahead to verse 24 through 32. We see now he's in front of Festus, and Festus interrupted Paul. "You are out of your mind, Paul," he shouted. "Your great learning is driving you crazy." "I'm not crazy, most excellent Festus," Paul replied. "What I am saying is true and responsible. The king is familiar with these things, so I can speak openly to him. I am certain he knows everything that has been going on. After all, it was not done in secret. King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets?" "I know you do." Then Agrippa spoke to Paul. "Are you trying to talk me into becoming a Christian?" He said, "Do you think you can do that in such a short time?" Paul replied, "I don't care if it takes a short time or a long time. I pray to God for you and all who are listening to me today. I pray that you may become like me except for these chains." The king stood up. The governor and Bernice and those sitting with them stood up too. They left the room and began to talk with one another. "Why should this man die or be put in prison?" they said. "He has done nothing worthy of that." Agrippa said to Festus, "This man could have been set free, but he has made an appeal to Caesar." Even at this moment, Paul has the ability to go free. All he has to do is say, "I don't want to go to Rome. I don't need to see Caesar." Agrippa and Festus, they've got nothing against him at this point. It's the Jewish people that they don't want to send him to Rome, but Paul knows that he has to go to Rome. He has to go to the place where God has called him to go. That no matter what has happened in his life, he's got a destiny that he needs to go to Rome, that he needs to trust the fact that Rome is the place for him to be. So often we can look at our own lives and say, "I messed up here, so God can never use me there." Paul could have easily had this statement. He was there when Stephen was stoned, and he held the coats. He was responsible for going and persecuting the Jewish believers. He doesn't look at his past and say, "I'm written off because of it," but he looks at it and says, "Because of my past, I'm going to do everything I can now for God, because I realize God is who God says he is, that he is the God of Jacob. He's the God who's going to come in and change my situation and give me hope. And so because I've been given hope, I'm going to do everything that I can." In Romans 11:28-32, Paul writes, "As far as the good news is concerned, the people of Israel are enemies. This is for your good. But as far as God's choice is concerned, the people of Israel are loved. This is because of God's promise to the founders of our nation. God does not take back his gifts. He does not change his mind about those he has chosen. At one time, you did not obey God. But now you have received mercy because Israel did not obey. In the same way, Israel has not been obeying God, but now they receive mercy because of God's mercy to you. God has found everyone guilty of not obeying him, so now he can have mercy on everyone." It doesn't matter where your mistakes are in your past. It doesn't matter if they were yesterday, 5 years ago, or 50 years ago. What matters is that we have repentance. We have salvation in Jesus Christ. We have this great hope. That's an anchor for our soul. It holds us where we are. It gives us hope. It gives us peace. And we have to always remind ourselves, it doesn't matter what goes on around us. It doesn't matter if my hope is on trial. I know the fact that if my hope is Jesus Christ, it will hold. It will hold me right here. No matter what storms come up against me, my hope is going to hold me there. And when you look at your life, when you look at your story, you look at your situations that go on in your life, don't give up hope. If your hope is in things of this world, they're going to fail you. But if your hope's in Jesus, then you realize that no matter what comes up against you, no matter what storm, no matter what problem, you know that Jesus is going to be there yesterday, today, and forever, that he is going to be there with you. We move into Acts 27, and the trip for Rome begins. Paul and some other prisoners are handed over to the Roman commander Julius. And in verse 9, it says, "A lot of time has passed. Sailing had already become dangerous. By now it was after the Day of Atonement, a day of fasting. So Paul gave them a warning. 'Men,' he said, 'I can see that our trip is going to be dangerous. The ship and everything in it will be lost. Our own lives will be in danger also.' But the commander didn't listen to what Paul said. Instead, he followed the advice of the pilot and the ship's owner. The harbor wasn't a good place for ships to stay during winter, so most of the people decided we should sail on. They hoped we would reach Phoenix. They wanted to spend the winter there. Phoenix was a harbor in Crete. It faced both southwest and northwest. A gentle south wind began to blow. The ship's crew thought they saw their chance to leave safely. So they pulled up the anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind blew down from the island. It had the force of a hurricane. It was called the nor'easter. The ship was caught by the storm. We could not keep it sailing into the wind. So we gave up and were driven along by the wind. We passed the calmer side of a small island called Caudia. We also lost the lifeboat that was tied to the side of the ship. So the men lifted the lifeboat on board. Then they tied ropes under the ship itself to hold it together. They were afraid that we'd get stuck on the sandbars of Syrtis. So they lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took a very bad beating from the storm. The next day, the crew began to throw the ship's contents overboard. On the third day, they even threw the ship's tools and supplies overboard with their own hands. The sun and stars didn't appear for many days. The storm was terrible. So we gave up all hope of being saved. Just notice for a moment, this is Luke that's writing this. Luke, the writer who has seen all these different things happen in Acts, in verse 20, says, we gave up hope of being saved. So even someone who has seen miraculous happen has given up hope. Verse 21, the men had not eaten for a long time. Paul stood up in front of them. Men, he said, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete, then you would have avoided this harm and loss. Now I beg you to be brave. Not one of you will die. Only the ship will be destroyed. I belong to God and serve him. Last night his angel stood beside me. The angel said, do not be afraid, Paul. You must go on trial in front of Caesar. God has shown his grace by sparing the lives of all those sailing with you. Men, continue to be brave. I have faith in God. It will happen just as he told me. But we must run the ship onto the beach of some island. There's something that we can appreciate about Paul. The thing that we can appreciate about Paul is this, is that he has no fear. He knows that God is going to do what God says he's going to do. It would be great to live in this kind of hope, that no matter what we're facing, no matter what we're scared about, no matter what struggles we have, no matter what sicknesses, no matter what relationship problems, financial problems, fill in the blank problems, whatever is going on in your own life, that we don't have to be afraid, we don't have to worry, because we know that God is there, and he's going to see us through to the best case scenario. It may not be the easy case scenario, but it will be the best case scenario that furthers the gospel and lets Jesus' name be made glorified and bring attention and praise to his name. The thing that we struggle with so much is we want to do it our way because we can see what looks easy today, what looks right today, and we can't see what's coming down a week from now, or a month from now, or 6 months from now, or 6 years from now. We can only see right now. And God's looking at it and saying, yes, that would be good now, but you don't know where that situation is going to put you 6 months from now. And I want to protect you from that, so I'm not going to let you have this. And we get upset, we get frustrated, we say, God, this is my way. This is the way it should be. Our hope's not in what we see. Our hope is in Jesus. Our hope is in what we cannot control. Our hope is in what we can't do on our own. So I'd like to just encourage you with this, is that when you feel like there's fear and anxiety and everything surrounding you, take the hope out of your mind of what should I do in these things, and turn the hope and say, okay, God, what are you trying to do? Because when we reach a point of having fear, then we should go to our comforter. When we feel anxious, we should go to the one who can remove all anxiety. When we feel a need for a healer, then we should go to the one who, by his stripes, we are healed. We go to the one who can actually give us hope. Because no matter what any of us can do, no matter the strongest Christian or the strongest faith or the strongest prayer life or the strongest whatever in this room is going to let you down. But the one who will never let you down is Jesus, because if we follow his path, we'll get to exactly where we're supposed to be. I don't know if when you were a kid, you ever read a book that was a choose your own adventure book. I love reading those books because you could read through it and it could be a 5-minute read or it could be a 60-minute read. It basically depended on did you make good choices or bad choices. But the beautiful thing is even when you made a bad choice, the next time it gave you an option of, if you want to do option A, go to page 12. If you want to do option B, go to page 20. You could always get yourself back on course again to get to the right ending. That's the way it is with God. You may have made a mistake. You may feel like, I have no hope for me. And God's right over here saying, yeah, if you keep picking the wrong pages, there's no hope for you. But here I am introducing the fact that if you pick the right page, if you go to the right story right now, it's going to take a little bit longer to get you where you needed to be, but I'm going to get you there. When we place our hope in Jesus, we're good. When we place our hope in ourselves, we will fail ourselves time and time again. What Paul is suggesting here makes no sense. Think about it for a moment. We're going to lose the ship, but we're all going to live. We're going to crash the ship on an island. Here's my idea, guys. This great ship, this thing that's supposed to get us to Rome, let's just run it into the beach, and then we'll survive. That doesn't make sense. But think about it. So often God calls us to do the things that make no sense in our own lives, to crash what seems like normal success into the beach and to start going the way God has called us to do. The amount of times I've heard missionaries who are in their 50s or even 60s say, we were planning this particular life, and then all of a sudden God sends us on this completely different mission. I know many of you that have been here for a lengthy period of time, you know the Pasquales. The Pasquales had a ministry where they were in youth ministry, they were district youth directors, they had all these different things that they've done. And late in their pastoral career, God says, go to Italy. They have grandchildren here, and then God says, go to Italy. What did they do? They went to Italy. Why? Because God has called them to do that. What has God called you to do? And if it means crashing a ship, and you say, I don't want to, I don't have hope in that, God's the giver of hope. If God has called you to it, He's going to equip you to do every single thing that He has called you to do. I look at this part of the story, and I have to compare it to the story of Jonah. That Jonah is called to go to Nineveh and preach to the Ninevites, but he has no hope for the Ninevites. He looks at them and says, God, there's no way that they can be saved. I don't want to go and talk to them. I'm going to hop on a boat. I'm going to go in the complete opposite direction. We're going to go to Tarshish. And a similar storm comes along. And in this case, Paul's saying, throw everything overboard. Let's get rid of the ship. God's going to save us. In Jonah's story, he says, hey, if you throw me overboard, then I can die, and you guys can live. He has a complete other reaction, but here's the thing with God. No matter how much we want to try, no matter how much we want to force our will onto God, God's will always happens. Because Jonah didn't know that there was going to be a giant whale or a giant fish who was going to swallow him up and hand-deliver him to Nineveh. That God's word was going to be proclaimed to the Ninevites. There's nothing that Jonah could do to stop it. But Paul realized that, because here's what my hope is. Even if this doesn't seem the right way, even if this requires me being in prison, even if this requires me, I'm just going to place my hope in Jesus, because the worst thing that can happen to me is I'm going to go to heaven. And that's a pretty good thing. If the worst thing that can happen to you is that you're going to go to heaven, that's a good day. We need to have that kind of hope. The worst thing is heaven, or I'm going to live and I'm going to have an awesome testimony. When we start approaching life with that mentality of give me a great testimony or send me to heaven, those are the types of people who change the world. And we need to live those sorts of ways. So now we finally arrive in chapter 28, having made this great journey through the entire book of Acts. And we see the fact that everything that has happened to Paul, the enemy's not done trying to take him out. You see, I think this is one of the struggles that we run into, is we think that we reach this pinnacle moment as a Christian where no longer are we attacked, and that we just get to live this nice, beautiful life, that we have arrived, we've earned the gold medal, and then we can just walk right through life until the day where we enter heaven's gates. It's not the case. Now all of a sudden we have Acts 28, verses 1 through 10. When we were safe on shore, we found out that the island was called Malta. The people of the island were unusually kind. It was raining and cold, so they built a fire and welcomed all of us. Paul gathered some sticks and put them on the fire. A poisonous snake was driven out by the heat. It fastened itself on Paul's hand. The people of the island saw the snake hanging from his hand. They said to one another, "This man must be a murderer. He escaped from the sea, but the female god Justice won't let him live." Paul shook the snake off into the fire. He was not harmed. The people expected him to swell up. They thought he would suddenly fall dead. They waited for a long time, but they didn't see anything unusual happen to him. So they changed their minds. They said he was a god. Publius owned property nearby. He was the chief official on the island. He welcomed us into his home. For 3 days, he took care of us. He treated us with kindness. His father was sick in bed. The man suffered from fever and dysentery. So Paul went in to see him. Paul prayed for him. He placed his hands on him and healed him. Then the rest of the sick people on the island came. They too were healed. The people of the island honored us in many ways. When we were ready to sail, they gave us the supplies we needed. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. A poisonous snake jumps out into the fire and bites him. This is one of those scenes from Paul I really wish I could see. I hope that when we get to heaven, there's this giant archives of all these different stories where you get to see this. I mean, I just had a picture. He's making this fire, this giant snake, with poisonous snake, latches onto his arm, and he just looks at it just like, I forget you. It throws it right back in the fire. And everybody expects him to die. He's been bit by a venomous snake. And he lives. How does he know that he's going to live? How does he know that he's going to survive? Because his hope's in Jesus. His hope is in Jesus Christ. Jesus promised, I'm going to get you to Rome. So this snake ain't going to stop me. And so often, God has promised. He said, this is going to happen for you. You may not know the timing, you may not know the way, but this is going to happen for you. Do not give up hope. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. That I'm the God of Abraham, I'm the God of Isaac, and I'm the God of Jacob. That even if you think you've failed, even if you don't think you're good enough, you're good enough because Jesus is in you, that Jesus has made you whole. He shakes that snake off, and let me just make a mention, because there's definitely in some Pentecostal circles that are a little bit on the crazy side, that they'll take this verse and they'll actually bring snakes into the sanctuary. Don't worry, I do not have snakes back that I'm going to have you all grab. But Will and Anna, you looked very nervous there for a second. But there's people who say, well, I'll be able to handle snakes and poisonous snakes and they won't harm me. This is not a test of God. There's one thing that is told of us that the test and see if God would prove, and that's in Malachi 3, where we're asked to test God that if I give to you, that you'll pour out blessings and you'll pour out glory and honor. The God is going to take care of us. If we give to God, then God will give back to us and he will meet our needs. That's where we're tested, or called to test and see. There's nowhere in Scripture that says, go into your Sunday morning gathering and grab poisonous snakes and play with them. I'm just saying, if you ever see that going on in a service, I'd be a little bit leery. Here's the thing. We are called not to follow after miracles, but to follow after Jesus. And I think so often Christians can get so focused on, let me follow the miracle, that we lose sight of the miracle maker. Here's the thing, though, is we follow after Christ, miracles should be following after us. We need to stop trying to say, okay, God, this is what you did back then, so let me make you do it again, that exact same way. If you haven't noticed with God, God has some really unique, crazy ways of making things happen and proving points. Why do we want to see him do the same thing again when we can see him do a new thing? And all of a sudden we see miracles happen. We see the dead come back to life. We see all kinds of crazy things because we're seeking God. And when we seek God and we put Jesus first, then all of a sudden all this other stuff starts falling in line and happening. But if we start following all this stuff, then we're giving glory to the miracle, not glory to the one who created the miracle. But here's where I want us to grab this idea from this snake, is that God is going to protect you in what he's called you to do. That when things come up against you, that he is going to provide you exactly with what you need. And here's the beautiful thing. Yes, the snake comes up. Yes, it attacks him. Yes, it bites him. But it all of a sudden allows the people to say, okay, there's something different about this guy. This guy has been through a lot of struggle. There's a shipwreck, a poisonous I'm just adding stuff to the Bible now. A poisonous snake comes up and bites him. See, for those of you that are leery of spiders and snakes, I'm just trying to mess with you right now. But he's not dying. Like, this guy had multiple lives. Like, what's going on? And then he has the ability to go in and start praying for the sick, and then all of a sudden the sick are healed. And now, when we go back to the end of the passage again, when we were ready to sail, they gave us the supplies we needed. They should have never sailed in the first place. Paul had that dream. Paul said, don't go. They went anyways. But here it is. They listened to Paul then. They crashed the boat. People were healed. People met Jesus. And then God provided the boat so that they could get to Rome. Now, we get to the end of 28. In verse 30, it says this: for 2 whole years, Paul stayed there in a house he rented. This is in Rome. He welcomed all who came to see him. He preached boldly about God's kingdom. He taught people about the Lord Jesus Christ, and no one could keep him from teaching and preaching about these things. You see, Paul's story doesn't end. Paul's story, all of a sudden, lands him in a new place where he can start telling about Jesus to new people, so that new people could experience healing, new people could experience freedom, new people could experience salvation. And here's the thing that we have to realize is that when we place our hope in ourselves and we trust ourselves that I can do this and I can get myself here, what if that's not where God wants you to be? What if God has a completely different plan for your life and you say, I want to do it myself, and God's looking at you like, that may not be bad, but it's not best. What about the people that you're never going to get to experience and you're never going to get to tell about the gospel to, that I've got such great plans in store for you, but you're choosing second best or third best or fourth best? It's that idea of that Thanksgiving dinner. Think for a moment. You're first in line at Thanksgiving dinner. Whatever your favorite foods are, I don't know what your family traditions are, but you're first. And you go after the least favorite food first. Like when you're first in like a banquet line, you get the opportunity to put whatever you want on your plate. When you're last, you get whatever's left over, and you kind of hope that you can scrape together a decent looking plate of food. But imagine if you're first and you go after all the scraps that nobody's going to want anyways. I think that's what we do a lot of times with God, is that we start looking at it saying, I want to put together what I think is best. And where God is standing there, he wants to like put heaping plates of blessings on you. And we're choosing second best. We're choosing what's not good enough. If the worship team can come forward. This is the thought that I want to leave you with the book of Acts. Typically when we read books, or we see plays, or we see movies, the thing that happens over and over again is you get about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the book, or through the story, or through the movie, and you hit the climax of the movie. It's that pinnacle of all the action. And then whatever is left in that movie, or book, or story, or anything, begins to be that tying together all the small little details, the bringing the story together to make it be that happy ending. For those of you that maybe you watch your Hallmark Christmas movies, where every single storyline is predictable and it's basically different people with different names but same story, you kind of see that play out. You can kind of see, like, here is the pattern of the story. Here's what's going to happen over and over and over again. But the book of Acts isn't like that. Where's the climax in the book of Acts? Chapter 2. Right off the bat at the beginning. Because here's the thing with our lifestyle with Jesus Christ. Is when Jesus comes into our life, he radically changes and transforms our life. He turns it upside down. We see that happening in the beginning of the book of Acts. We see a group of individuals led by Peter, who they're desperate. They don't know where to go. They feel like they're being hunted. You have Peter, who denies Christ 3 times just days before, once to a little girl. And then all of a sudden, the baptism of the Holy Spirit happens, and a boldness comes over them. The ability to proclaim the truth of who Jesus Christ is. When that moment happens, things change. And then you start looking through the rest of the book. There's some growth that happens. There's definitely character development that happens through the rest of the book. You see boldness growing. You see hope growing. You see trust growing. But that's what our lives are with Christ. When we truly accept Christ, we see this radical change. Especially when we experience the baptism of the Holy Spirit for the first time. We see a radical change. That the way I did life before, it can't be that way anymore. I can't keep doing the same things. But we struggle. Because we say, yes, Jesus is my life. Yes, he's forgiven me, but yes, I've struggled over here. And how can God really use me? Because God's the God of Jacob. He's not just the God of Israel. He's the God of Jacob. He's the God that comes along and says, yes, I know you haven't lived quite the way you wanted to. Yes, I know you've messed up. Yes, I know you've had problems. But there comes that moment where we wrestle with God and God changes us. And we move in a completely different direction and we experience who God is. And that's what I want to challenge you with as we finish the book of Acts today, is that realization that your life can be radically different. But I can't do it for you. Your spouse can't do it for you. Your parents can't. Your children can't. The only person that can is you and Jesus. That Jesus comes in and says, this is what you need to do, and do it. Because we place our hope in Jesus, not our hope in ourselves. When our hope is in ourselves, we will fail ourselves eventually every single time. But when our hope is in Jesus Christ, we know where our strength is. We know where his power comes from. And this morning, here's what I want to do. Is because I can look around the room and I can tell, because of things that have happened in your lives, there's some of you that you're beat up. You feel like you don't have hope today. And I don't need to do a big fancy altar call to identify that. It's because I know that there's been times in my life where I feel like I've been beaten up and where is my hope and where can I place my trust? In those moments, we come back to Jesus and we say, okay, I don't know how to do this on my own, but I know that I can place my hope here. I know this is where my hope can be. I know that you're not gonna fail on me. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, when we follow after Jesus, even if this life is not what we intended it to be or what we desired it to be, we may not see the ripple effect of what we choose to do. Some of us, you may follow after God, and you may never see any significant fruit. That's the God of Abraham. Abraham was promised that he was going to be the father of many nations, but he never saw it. Sarah doesn't even see grandchildren. Abraham and Sarah have their names changed. They're promised that all this great is going to come to you. But Sarah doesn't even see her own grandchildren. But look at what God did. He fulfilled the promise and said, place your trust and place your hope in me, and I will do this for you. I will take care of you. I will get you to where you need to be. And he came through. No matter where you are, trust the fact that you may not see the fruit, but the fruit is growing. That if you're doing what God has called you to do, the fruit is growing. It may not be until you get to heaven until you see that fruit. But it's not up to you to harvest the fruit. It's up to you to be faithful in doing what God has called you to do, and in the right time, that harvest will come. So this morning, as we just worship, here's what I want to do. I want to put this in your hands this morning. This altar is going to be free, but don't feel like you have to come to this space, because it's never about a space. It's about the relationship with God in your head and in your heart, of saying, okay, God, what are you speaking to me and what am I doing? What are you speaking to my heart and what am I thinking and putting into action? Some of you in this room, you may have never authentically given your lives over to Jesus. I just challenge you this morning. Do it. You have this hope that can anchor your soul. If you feel like you're being blown from place to place, your hope's in Jesus. Trust him. He'll be able to come through for you. And if you feel like life is just pushing you back and forth right now, I just want you to, as we sing, as we worship, as we finish today, place your hope and know that God has got you. That he has not turned his back on you. He has not forgotten you. He has not forsaken you. He's right there. It may just require your ship to be shipwrecked so that God can place you in a different place to get you where he wants you to be. But trust him that his process is best. So this morning, these altars are going to be open. And I just want to say this. Your hope may feel like it's on trial, but when your hope is in Jesus, it will be found pure and good every single time. If your hope is in yourself, it's going to fail. So this morning, that's my challenge, is just let's worship and say, God, you have all my hope. I place all my trust in you today. Would you just stand with me and let's just